Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are. Welcome to another episode of Watercolor Instructions. My name is Sunil. I'm your watercolor instructor. My aim is to deconstruct a watercolor instructions so that it's simple to follow and everybody else who wants to try or hasn't succeeded can try. Today I'm going to do an illustration, grapes. And also with this grapes, I'll put in the colors as and how I've chosen. So you can see there's about 9 different colors. And I will go through step by step how I draw composite and how to build the layers. This is a good class for glazing, and then you can slowly build different layers, and you can see watercolors you build from dark and then you come up with the highlights. Stick around and we'll do this one. Alright, so today we're going to do a grape illustration. So I'm using a 6B pencil. I'm using some reference, and I'm just putting in some composition, especially with the grapes and other things. You don't need to worry too much about composition as long as it fits within the paper. And the drawing, you don't need any skill as long as you can draw some ovals and you try to replicate as close as possible to an image. This is a bunch of grapes I saw. I'm just trying to capture that. I'm just paying attention which goes in the front and which doesn't go in the front. And this whole exercise is a class of glazings, how you can, with you, even if you don't have a big skill set, you can start putting in some light colors and then slowly build till you get the right effect. I'm connecting the grape wine, few of them, important, gives that notion of grape, especially when you're trying to draw illustration. The drawing needs to be true to its original form. This is not an abstract painting. Abstract painting, you don't care too much about the form, but colors. But an illustration, you want to be true to the drawing. If the drawing looks off, chances are, it doesn't matter how good you paint, it's going to look not clean. I'm just using a mop brush to clean the surface. So I just want to have clean palette. It's just cleanish palette. There's still a little bit of muck around the corner, but that's alright. I'm just, as you see, it's a plastic palette. It's never very super clean, but that's a cost of cheap watercolor palettes. So if you want a really good palette which has clean surface, then probably you want to look for an enamel, but that would cost a lot more. And I'm just checking the color at the tip of the paper. So I'm just using my first wash. So first wash, I'm being very rough. I'm not care too much. I'm adding a little bit of Algerian red and white at this stage. That would be my lightest, second lightest. The white is the first light, and this would be the second lightest. And also I'm putting in a palette swatch or a color to know how many glazing layers I'm gonna do. So this is an exercise of just adding in multiple layers, having a point of light source, and then going from there. At this stage, this painting is more logical than artistic, to be honest. So anybody who says this painting is very creative, sometimes it's just understanding logic. So I'm adding a little bit of pyrrole red, and the brush I'm using is a synthetic brush. It picks up less pigment, but also because it's stiff bristles, you can control a lot easier. Usually if you've seen my other videos, I tend to use more of a softer brush, either a mop or a calligraphy brush. But for illustrations, you pick your weapon correctly, and for this one you want to pick a synthetic brush. So if you notice, the top left hand corner is where the light source is. So I'm adding darker shades based on the light source. And also it's still pretty wet. I'm letting the colors bleed into the first layer. So that would be my second swatch. If you look at it, the tone is a lot darker. And I'm adding a layer of shadow. Also keep in mind the color, the wet color is what you see. It's a lot lighter when it dries. So you want to be a little more darker. I would say you lose about 20 to 30%. So you want to be a lot darker when you're painting than what it actually will dry and look like. And how do you know? One way I learned is by experience. So I I tend to, I don't know whether there's a better gauge of trying to understand how dark it should be to compensate when it dries. You just have to practice, paint as many paintings as possible. So I'm picking up a little bit of purple and adding the fourth layer or third layer on the grapes. In total, the fourth layer. So I'm guessing this drawing can be done in 6 or 7 layers, to be honest. It's a process. So you're slowly adding more layers. You could try to finish the painting in 2 or 3 layers, but you'll see the difference between a painting which is done a thin layer of glazing done over multiple layers will look much more realistic. At least that's what I'm trying to do here. So as you see, the grapes are, the water, it's dry, so it's leaving a dark sharp edge. I'm cleaning my brush. I'm going to come back and then soften the edge. So in the brush there's just water. I'm just softening the dark edge to a soft edge. It's just water, and then it blends the edge to make it. Or you want to blend in. See that? So it's very satisfying, and also an important technique to master. So it has to be done fairly quickly so that it's still wet. So a synthetic brush makes the job a lot easier. Every time I go to the next layer, I'm being a little more careful about the layers. So the fourth swatch is more purple red. I'm mixing in some Indian yellow, and there was some leftover green. So you treat the stem in the same way. So you draw the lightest color first. That's almost yellow, and then I'll clean my brush and just softening the edge. So it's a good time to dry, or you wait if you got time. So I'm introducing a little more gray into this one. So Algerian red, purple, and a little more gray. So it's a lot more darker. I'm being a little more precise about the shape of the grapes. Every layer I'm going a little darker. I'm being a little more careful about the layers. And also smaller brush. I've switched to a smaller size brush. And softening the edge as I go. Making sure that you don't lose track of what are the grapes which are on the top and what grapes are in the bottom. So one other layer. I'm just getting close to finishing. I'm happy with the grapes at the moment, and then we go from there. So adding the final bits and bobs. Not to forget softening the edge while it's still wet. swatch, that would be the darks at the moment. I noticed the bottom grape wasn't softened. I'm just softening the edge. I'm picking up my browns. On the palette there was a little bit of raw umber, so I'm just adding the second layer for the stems. Within that narrow, I'm just trying to differentiate which stem comes in the front, which stem comes in the back. And the color indicates on the front or the back, or the shadows. And I'm picking up some white, and I'm adding some highlights. Before applying, I'm just drawing it once more. So that will be my last layer. So applying some highlights. I'm going to finish off by taking some pigments, white pigments directly from the tube, and doing that as the final layer. So that's another swatch. I hope you can see it on the screen. I'm just adding a little more shadow to the stem, and I'm picking up paint from the tube and adding some pigments. And I'm just darkening certain areas where the shadow is a little more darker. And I'm just softening the edge. I'm putting in some darker lines with just a pencil, just to add the deepest shadow. And a marker. That ends the class or a video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm hoping that you picked something from this video. You could do any grapes or any color, fruits and other things, but the principle is exactly the same. So you slowly build up. There's always a light source. In this case, that's the light source. You slowly build. It takes a little bit of time. It's not like landscapes and other things where you can rush things. It needs to be a little more realistic. It doesn't have to be ultra realistic, but a little more realistic than if you have watched my other videos. So I hope you enjoyed, and then if you like some more of these tips, look at the videos. And till next time, keep watercoloring and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Thank you. Bye.